Death is the ultimate mystery in all cultures. In the West, there are concepts like heaven, hell, and reincarnation. But in Taoism, the afterlife is far more complex. The soul might ascend and become an immortal, fall into the cycle of reincarnation, or even merge with the Tao itself. At birth, the first spirit is called Po, and when fully formed, the Yang spirit is called Hun. The Hun spirit returns to the heavens, while the Po spirit remains attached to the earth. Those thought forming a philosophical framework in which the Hun and Po are divided between Yin and Yang. After death, the Hun returns to the heavens. The spirit and Po separate, and the physical body returns to the earth. Specifically, the Hun represents the spirit that can leave the body and exist independently, while the Po represents the spirit that is bound to the physical body. This concept may originate from three opinions: yin-yang dualistic cosmology, the philosophy of Qi, the five spirits theory. Yin-yang theory may remind you of the dualism of good and evil in ancient Persian Zoroastrianism, Plato's dualism of forms and things, or Kant's dualism of noumena and phenomena. That's right. The core idea of dualistic cosmology holds that the universe is composed of two fundamental elements or forces interacting with each other, rather than being dominated by a single entity. For example, Plato proposed that the world has two independent sources, consciousness and matter. In the yin-yang dualism, the more material characteristics are attributed to yin, such as passivity, softness, introversion, coldness, and dissent, while the more spiritual characteristics are attributed to yang, such as activity, strength, extroversion, heat, and assent. However, the world is a whole, and it cannot be separated. Therefore, in Daoist theory, although yin and yang are opposites, they do not exist independently. Instead, they are interdependent, mutually governing, and continuously transforming into each other. This is the concept of yin contains yang, and yang contains yin, which Taoism used to create the imagery of the Taiji diagram. This viewpoint was also adopted by the Yin-Yang school, a philosophy from the Spring and Autumn and Warring States periods, which was later absorbed by Taoism after it declined. Song Yin, a philosopher from the Warring States period, recognized that Tao has two different meanings, one representing material particles and the other representing principles or laws. To avoid confusion between these two concepts, he introduced the concept of essence and Qi to replace a portion of the content of Tao. Thus, Qi can also be understood as the manifestation of Tao within the human body. This is why later Chinese rituals and martial arts place such great importance on the concept of Qi, because it represents the embodiment of the cosmic Tao. Just as the cosmic principles operate in the universe, Qi operates within our bodies. The five spirits theory appears in the Yellow Emperor's inner canon. The five organs: the heart houses the spirit, the lungs house the Po, the liver houses the Hun, the spleen houses the Yi, and the kidneys house the Jing and Will. Although the theory of the three souls and seven Po is not explicitly mentioned, after later generations accepted the three souls and seven Po theory, the notion that the lungs house the seven Po and the liver houses the three Hun quickly emerged. The five elements theory posits that all things in the world can be categorized into five basic components: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. These elements are interrelated through cycles of generation and control, maintaining a dynamic balance. The concept of the 5 elements was first recorded in the Shangshu, where it referred to the characteristics of the 5 natural substances: water, fire, wood, metal, and earth. Over time, from the spring and autumn period through the Warring States and Han dynasties, this idea evolved and expanded, adding elements such as yin and yang, the 4 seasons, the 5 directions, and the 5 virtues to form a complete 5-element system. However, it has been discovered that the seeds of the 5 elements theory can be traced back to the Shang dynasty oracle bone inscriptions. The inscriptions mention the concept of the 4 directions, and it is evident that the Shang dynasty emphasized the central direction, which led to the idea of the 5 directions. The 5 elements theory, therefore, emerged from the belief that the world could be divided into 5 categories. When people first encounter the Chinese fortune-telling system, they often come across 8 characters representing 5 different elements. This is a typical example of the 5 elements being introduced into the fortune-telling system. The 8 characters refers to these 8 characters, and the system asserts that by arranging a person's year, month, day, and time of birth, one can determine their fate. To increase possibilities, the 5 elements are combined with yin and yang to form the 10 heavenly stems. The generating cycle refers to the relationship of mutual help and promotion between 2 different elements. Wood generates fire, fire generates earth, earth generates metal, metal generates water, and water generates wood. The controlling cycle is the opposite of the generating cycle, where 2 different elements exert control over each other. Wood controls earth, earth controls water, water controls fire, fire controls metal, and metal controls wood. These cycles manifest the 5 substances in nature, and the theory serves as a metaphysical framework. According to this theory, the ancient Chinese applied these ideas to explain various phenomena, including the human body's 5 organs. The earliest complete record of the concept of 3 souls and 7 po appears in the Eastern Jin. To achieve spiritual enlightenment, one must separate the golden and watery forms. Once the form is divided, the 3 hun and 7 po within the body will become apparent. Regarding the specific meanings of the 3 hun and 7 po, there are 2 mainstream interpretations. Yunji Qiqian suggests that 3 hun include the bright spirit, fetal light, and shadow essence, and 7 po include the corpse dog, the hidden arrow, the bird's shadow, the swallowed thief, the non-toxic, the removal of impurities, and the foul lungs. The other book states that 3 hun is 1 is the heavenly soul, 2 is the earth soul, and 3 is the life soul. 1 po is the heavenly clash, 2 po is the spiritual wisdom, 3 po is the key, 4 po is the strength, 5 po is the central hub, 6 po is the essence, and 7 po is the hero. After the concept of the 3 hun and 7 po emerged, similar to the 5 elements theory, it was widely applied in many other fields. This widespread application reflects the ancient Chinese belief in a set of principles capable of explaining all phenomena in the world, such as in Daoist, alchemy, and prophetic theology. In Daoist practice, the refinement of hun and po is metaphorically aligned with external alchemy, using 2 key elements. The 3 hun correspond to 3 leads: white lead, black lead, yellow lead, symbolizing the transformation of Jing Qi and Shen. The 7 po correspond to 7 mercuries, associated with the Big Dipper, representing the purification of yin substances. They employs lead mercury fusion as an allegory for soul harmonization. Metal and water unite, wood and fire pair. The four intermingle chaotically, forming dragon and tiger. Dragon, yang, bears odd numbers. Tiger, yin, bears even. Daoists believed that through alchemical fusion, much like turning base lead into gold, the perfected union of Hun and Po could elevate mortals to immortality. Apocryphal cosmology link 3 Hun to 3 deities. The 7 Po align with the Big Dipper. The belief that the soul is associated with the numbers 3 and 7 is precisely why traditional Chinese mourning rituals last 49 days, and why Chinese wake-keeping observes 7-day cycles. Before the introduction of Buddhism to China, the Chinese did not have the concept of posthumous judgment. They even believed that everything from life, including class and wealth, would be carried into the afterlife. After death, emperors remained emperors, and nobles remained nobles. However, the arrival of Buddhism had a significant impact on Chinese beliefs, creating a sense of crisis in various belief systems in China, which, to some extent, promoted the birth of Taoism. For example, concepts like reincarnation, the influence of good and evil on posthumous treatment, and deities judging human actions were persuasive to the Chinese at the time, who did not have a systematic religious framework. This led to the prolonged religious debate between Buddhism and Taoism, which lasted for thousands of years. In this ideological clash, Buddhism absorbed Taoist thought, giving rise to Chan Buddhism, while Taoism integrated Buddhist concepts and its pantheon of deities, such as the 6 realms of reincarnation. This theory posits that all life is part of a continuous cycle, where one's current life may be human, but in the next cycle, one might become a cow or sheep. Taoism, for instance, believes that souls who fail to become immortals enter Fengdu, Luotian, the underworld, managed by the 10 kings of hell, which resembles the court of the underworld, and features the mirror of sins to assess the good and evil of one's actions during their lifetime. After Buddhism spread eastward, the belief in the 10 kings of hell emerged. It was said that these kings were the rulers of the underworld, and after death, everyone must report to the underworld to be judged by the Yama kings. Interestingly, although the 6 realms of reincarnation are considered a post-death arrangement, the Chinese people were reluctant to accept this fate and wrote fables to express their rejection of reincarnation. During the reign of Emperor Liang Wu, there was a high monk named Zigong, who possessed the 5 eyes and 6 supernatural powers, understanding all causes and consequences. Once, a wealthy family invited Zigong to chant scriptures for a marriage ceremony. As soon as he stepped into the doorway, he sighed and said, "Strange, strange. The grandson marries the grandmother. Pigs and sheep sit on the couch, and relatives are boiled in the pot. The daughter eats her mother's flesh. The son beats his father's skin drum. People come to congratulate, but I truly see this as suffering." In his vision, the grandmother was reincarnated to marry her grandson. The parents were reincarnated as cows and sheep to be cooked in the pot. Pigs and sheep were reincarnated as humans sitting at the table. The mother was reincarnated as an animal eaten by her daughter, and the father was reincarnated as an animal with his skin used to make a drum. Yet, people still came to offer congratulations. How painful life is. Thus, those who did not want to accept the arrangement of reincarnation sought methods to escape it and become immortals. The official history records that Kou Qianzhi demonstrated the technique of ascending to the heavens in broad daylight, where he publicly ascended at the altar of Mount Song. Taoism suggests that if a mortal wishes to break free from the cycle of life and death, there are 3 paths they can choose. Internal alchemy refers to the practice of the human body as a small universe, based on the philosophy of heaven and man as one, heaven and man in correspondence. It involves cultivating one's life and vitality by using the human body as a furnace, refining essence, energy, and spirit to create an internal elixir, ultimately achieving a strong, healthy body, enhanced life functions, and even the goal of becoming an immortal. The term Dan elixir comes from the idea of unity, the concept of one. Only the Tao exists without opposites and independent of duality, which is why it is called Dan. External alchemy and internal alchemy are 2 corresponding methods of practice. Initially, alchemists used minerals and herbs to create elixirs that could prolong life and grant immortality. However, due to the harmful effects of heavy metals, they abandoned this path and began to emphasize the practice of internal alchemy instead. The practice of internal alchemy is divided into 4 stages: foundation building, refining essence into energy, refining energy into spirit, refining spirit back to emptiness. Taoism believes in the concept of heaven's Tao, bears responsibility, similar to the idea of karma, where an individual's good and bad actions will affect their own fate as well as that of their descendants. Therefore, simply practicing internal alchemy without cultivating virtuous conduct may still result in obstacles to immortality due to karma burdens. In this method, accumulating hidden virtue, avoiding heaven's burden, moving the gods can help you to transcend life and death through accumulating merit and virtue. People believe that through chanting sutras, using talismans, burning incense, and making offerings, one can refine and liberate the departed souls, helping them escape hell and even ascend to the immortal realm. If a soul is liberated, its relatives can also receive grace, reducing their own sins and increasing their chances of becoming immortal. Like all religions, Taoism has created a spiritual system to address the anxiety of death, helping people feel that perhaps death is not the end, but rather some kind of transformative ritual that we have yet to understand. Just like Zhuangzi's reason for playing the drum and singing at his wife's funeral. When she first passed, how could I not feel sorrow? But upon reflection, she originally had no life, no form, no breath. In the chaos, she took on form and life through the transformation of the Tao, and now she returns to the heavens and earth. It's as natural as the cycles of the seasons.
故花无久焉，从来月不长圆。人君对镜寄语，来买长生不死。非情可有千年祸，世上西风百岁人。生碌碌，死茫茫。要脚何时脚？你想唱哪得唱？浮云言说语，无事谈言凉。说什么功名富贵，夸什么锦绣文章？ 虚心到头总是幻，敌然陷进梦荒凉。三皇五帝归何处？历代公卿在哪方？但看青史上，谁论免无常？真理若不美，华严来信信仰。